questions for Molly on QWERTY Fest, typewriters, cream puff eating, all of the above.
Or media.
Or media.
That's yes. Got one ready over here?
Hi, thank you for coming in. I was wondering about the jobs that the women would have to go do as the typewriters. Was it more like secretary, and that's kind of where the stereotype of women are secretaries came from? Can you just speak more on what they would be doing?
Yeah, so it's really hard for us to wrap our mind around what the world was like before, especially the United States was like before we had typewriters. There was no way to get words onto paper. So that was the only way you could communicate. And other than that, people had to handwrite everything. So like when the typewriter came out, I mean, it was like the invention of the cell phone, or the invention, it was the biggest thing to happen, not only for communication, but for American business. And everybody wanted one. And they could not make them fast enough. They got, other people started making them as well, but Remington was the leader. And they couldn't find enough men, as I said, who were willing to be, and back then, they were not called secretaries, they were not called typists, they were called typewriters. And it got a little confusing with both the person and the machine being called a typewriter. But what happened was that in letting women come into the office, it was such a male's culture that they immediately started making rules that we would consider extremely sexist today. And the best way I found this out is from the actual classified ads that they posted, and they weren't only looking for women, they were looking for young women, they were looking for attractive women. Now that's kind of subjective, right? But apparently these ads ran in that way. And it was, if the younger and more attractive you were, just kind of, that also is just sort of how the world as it works, and unfortunately for whatever, had the best chance of getting the jobs and for the most money. Now, that didn't stick because there simply weren't enough, there were not enough women who were going to be able to come into the workforce and work again on these machines that had flower decals on them. They looked like sewing machines. And so slowly it was, women of all kinds were led into offices, but it was where the rules started, where the rules of you can't wear pants, the rules of you have to have the high heels, the rules of it's okay for your boss and male coworkers to touch you. Not that was a written rule, that was a cultural norm. And it started to happen where women were treated, they were allowed into the office, but we were not treated as equals. We were treated as little fluffy pets or something, and worse. And so again, that could have been the moment, and there were women out there that wanted to organize us, but again, because it was money and because it was an opportunity for us to be a little bit better off, and especially if we were in a bad marriage, or especially if we were a lesbian, or especially if we just didn't meet the right person yet, or just didn't want to get married, it gave an option, a middle option, but yet it also created some really terrible workplace culture that went on well into the late 19th century, or 20th century, and still exists in some cases today. And again, you can't totally blame the typewriter for that, but you kind of can, because it was the machine that let us in.
Questions?
I'm pretty loud. I'm just curious because you started listing off things that were also invented in Milwaukee. One, typewriter, I had no idea, but I've been here my whole life. That's just that made my whole week. I'm super excited about that.
Good, I'm the QWERTY Fest.
Yeah, but what else, if you can pull from your head, was invented in Milwaukee? You said the answering machine and...
The thermostat, yes. One of the other big things, of course, is the Harley Davidson, motorcycle. And then there's so many cocktails that have been invented in Milwaukee, and specifically at Bryant's. if you're of drinking age and you're able to go to Brian's, it's super, it's a piece of history and it's a tavern and it's amazing. And so there's been so many, the brandy old fashioned, the pink squirrel, so many ice cream drinks that have all again come back in popularity again, the grasshopper, things that like I never really drank when I was in college or ever, but now they're out and about, there's so many bars that serve these drinks again. And then it's mostly for me, it's also just people too that, you might not know them by name, but they contributed in ways that it's too scientific for me to even wrap my mind around, but I'm like, because that's not how my mind works. But again, like if T were here, that's where he would come in and he'd be able to tell you that better. But there's things that involved in terms of science that, at Children's Hospital, for example, like there's a treatment for scoliosis. That is, if you've ever seen someone who has to wear like a brace, a body brace for scoliosis, that was invented in Milwaukee. I mean, not everything is like sexy and cool, but it's like there's just so many really important things, and that brace is the same one they still use today. It's called the Milwaukee brace, and it stops people from having scoliosis, which it is completely debilitating. You will not be able to walk if it goes untreated. And it's just like there's many things like that. The typewriter is exciting. But there's so many things like that I want to also spread the message that have changed lives. There have always been a lot of smart people in Milwaukee, and that is because of the water, the ease of getting here, and also, I mean, there's many reasons, but there's always been a very large, high IQ here, very, very large mass of very smart people, and that again is something that's really hard to prove, but has also been shown time and time again. And if you spend time out in Milwaukee, talk with all different groups of people, you will get that anecdotally as well.
Any other questions?
In the front here, Alan.
Oh, sorry.
You're good pillar. Sorry, my bad.
Hi, my family owns some typewriters and I've seen a few, but I've never seen any with the flower decals. Do you own any with that, and do you know like when that changed over?
Yes, so you can see one with a flower decal because at the Milwaukee Public Museum, they have an original Schultz and Glidden typewriter on display. In the basement of the Milwaukee, real quick gonna say, it's in the basement of the Milwaukee Public Museum. They have over 100 typewriters that are amazing. I had the opportunity as a journalist to literally go on I had to put on white gloves and went down in the basement and got to look at all of these typewriters, and my photographer got to photograph them. However, they say they don't have good room for them. So they have one, but that one has decals on it. So that one you can definitely check it out. I do not, because those typewriters are, again, they're on these stands that look like sewing machine stands. They weigh like 60 pounds or more. They're like iron, I call them boat anchors, with pretty flowers on them. My typewriters are all mostly from the 1950s and 60s, because there was a phenomenon in the 1950s and 60s, and I love thinking about this, and that was that suddenly there was a portable typewriter, so you could take it with you to school, or you could take it with you to a coffee shop, or you could like move it around. And then imagine that all of these people were in a coffee shop and they were typing, and the sound of that, and how you were, it wasn't a personal thing. You were, now if you did that, and I have typed, in plenty of open spaces, people don't always like it. I think it sounds cool, but but back then that was such a big deal. So I also, just for my own convenience, I like all the lightweight ones. They came out in all the funky colors and stuff. I have a lot of black ones, but really fun colors. And then in the 60s and 70s, the avocado greens and the rusts and stuff, and the bright pinks, and I mostly have those.
I used to think my laptop bag was too heavy in like 10 years ago. Anybody else questions? Good, awesome. All right, well, thank you so much, Molly. We appreciate it.